The Richmond Spiders are off to an 8-2 start, and head coach Aaron Roussell and sophomore forward Maggie Doogan are here to talk about the team season so far, Maggie's journey to Richmond, what's next for the team, and more. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
Ogunbowale for the win. Good!
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Hello and happy Wednesday. You are locked on to women's basketball. I'm host Natalie Heavren, and I'm a features writer and the Atlantic 10 beat reporter for The Next. Thanks for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On Women's Basketball is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Day. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. This is your first time listening to Locked On Women's Basketball. We at The Next have over 100 reported pieces every single month. We have a beat reporter on every single WNBA team, one on more than 15 different NCAA beats, including myself. So get that YouTube subscription up, and you can support us by subscribing to The Next for $9 a month, $72 a year at thenexthoops.com. Today we'll be chatting about Richmond's 8-2 start to the season, Maggie Doogan's sophomore season, what's next for the team, and more. Joining me today is Richmond head coach Aaron Roussell and sophomore forward Maggie Doogan. The Spiders are currently 8-2 and coming off an overtime win against Appalachian State on Sunday. Just starting off, looking back on the first 10 games, what has impressed you the most about your team so far?
Well, the last game, a little bit of resiliency and toughness. I think that was a game that didn't look good for a majority of the game. Was able to bounce back probably late that third quarter, but even then needed overtime to get in there. And, we've had some tough games, but we've also, kind of had some games where we've played really well against some really good teams that didn't come down to the wire. And as a coach, you enjoy those games. But this past one was a tough one and really showed some character, I think, from our team, which was great to see. But for us, I just think moving the basketball, a lot of really unselfish play. I think for the most part, we've been really good defensively as a group, but I think we've been really, really good offensively, sharing the basketball, making shots, and I think other ways stepping up when that hasn't happened.
Awesome. And anything to add, Maggie? What's impressed you the most about your teammates so far?
I think our chemistry on the floor has definitely improved a lot. We've been moving the ball, sharing the ball, and especially on defense too, we've been talking a lot and just playing off of each other. So I think that's just been huge these past 10 games, and hopefully we'll keep going the next couple.
And Aaron, how are you hoping your team is able to grow as the season continues?
Yeah, I think a lot of coaches, this time of year talk a lot about kind of role identification and players finding their roles and accepting their roles. And, I think that's hard with a team like this because I think we have a lot of kids that can score. We have a lot of different firepower lineups. We have different combinations that work, and some days they don't, and you're trying a different combination. So I think when I look at our team, I think we have 7 kids that really, really score the basketball incredibly well at this level. And majority of those kids, really all of those kids have proven it that they can score at this level. So I think that sometimes is a little bit unnerving as a coach. You don't know where your points are going to come from on a daily basis. I know Maggie's been great and at least at one point was leading our league in scoring. It's great to have that. But I've been telling kids, and maybe not even so much our team, but telling other people, we have 7 kids that maybe are potential 1,000-point scorers, and we can win games if 1 or 2 of them score 0 points in a game. And I think that's sometimes easier as a coach than as a player to experience those games, or maybe the box score is telling you you're not having the game you're supposed to have. But I can point to Siobhan Ryan. I can point to Addie Budnick, some games where they've scored probably under 5 points, and their box score still is okay. But I also get to the end of some of those games, and they're kind of the reason we've won some of those games without being able to score. So I think that's good, but I think that also takes some growth, takes some maturity, and probably still takes some in-game experience for that to kind of see where that'll all fall out.
And the Spiders have the 3rd highest scoring margin in the A10 this season and the best 3-point percentage in the conference. What's been clicking on offense and defense so far?
Well, the answer is Maggie, but I'll let Maggie start off with that one.
I mean, I just think we've been playing well as a team. You know, we're a very unselfish team. We move the ball, and we don't really care whose name is, you know, in articles the next day or like in the newspaper, because we just want to win. So I think that definitely plays a big part in our success. And we take a lot of pride in just defense and not letting the other team get what they want and take them out of their like rotations. And yeah, I mean, that's just been what we've been doing.
And I think what we've seen as coaches, I think these guys have really started to see it too. And this happened last year, maybe in the last couple of years, is, you know, when ball's moving and things are going, you know, I think the points come in bunches. You know, we've been able to make threes, as you alluded to, Natalie. But, you know, we've had games like Maine where I think we took like four threes the entire game, you know, and I think we won by 30, 33 points against a team that's really good. You know, they've beaten up on some of the teams in our league. And so I think that's probably a little bit more relaxed for me this year as a coach, as we don't go into it saying we have to make threes, we have to score from three. You know, I think we made 4 threes the other day and scored 80 points. You know, we scored maybe 3 or 4 threes. One of the other games, it still scored 80 points. And that maybe hasn't happened for us in years past. But I think we've been able to score at the basket, you know, probably a little bit more from mid-range than maybe we have before. And some of our mid-range shooters maybe like that a little bit more this year. But no, I just feel like we've been able to score in different ways with different players, different combinations, but also different spots on the floor.
And how has that helped you throughout the season to be able to have that flexibility in a lot of facets?
It's helped and it's hurt, to be honest with you. I think sometimes from a coach, you go into a game plan and, you know, you don't always know what the other team's going to try to take away. You kind of have your ideas of things that you want to take advantage of. But, you know, you don't know how teams are going to defend it. I thought App State did a really, really good job taking away the arc the other day. And, you know, even some things at the basket, you know, Villanova did that well. And I think we've been able to find different ways to score. And I think that sometimes you have to do your preparation before a game, but sometimes you're really forced to adjust during a game. Some of that's how are certain players playing. You know, we had some times you have to avoid some foul trouble. But it's really just nice to have those options as a coach. But the pressure is finding ways for your players to be able to adjust during that game as well.
And what's been the biggest lesson you've learned so far this season?
Biggest lesson, Mags. I'll let you handle this one to start.
I mean, it's a tough question. Biggest lesson is probably just to trust my teammates. I feel like we do have a lot of new players this year. So, you know, kind of in the off season, we were trying to find that kind of trust and figure out who does what best. But now I feel like we're at a spot where we can all, you know, we know what, like LV is going to bring the ball up and we know Faye is going to post up. Like we know different things about these new players. So our trust has just kind of grown. And yeah, the biggest lesson that I've learned is just trust your teammates.
And we're on the same team. So when she says trust teammates,
trust coaches.
She's also talking trust coaches too. So I'll add that one to it.
And, you know, I know you're only 10 games in, but have either of you had a favorite moment of the season so far?
Probably because it's fresh. God, man, this is hard to say this and sound bad, but I think part of it, I would say the kind of highlight was going to Drake. You know, I think for us to win at Drake, we knew that was going to be a really tough game. I think they've shown that before that and after with regard to Drake, that they're going to be a really, really good team this year. They don't lose at home a whole lot. And I thought, you know, it was a rough start, but then I thought our team just played really, really well. And you know, some tough calls, tough foul trouble, all of those sort of things. All of that happened in that game where we could have lost that game and would have been justifiable. And I thought our kids really bounced back and maybe a little bit with this past game too. You know, you get outscored by 27 points at home from the arc. That doesn't happen to us very often. And still to be able to win. There were some moments in this last game, and maybe Maggie and I probably had a little, I think it was verbal, maybe a couple eye looks that maybe, hey, Coach, you know, maybe this isn't this. Maybe we're not on the same page. You know, senior point guard. I think we had a timeout moment where we went back and forth, and it was like, this is a good thing for us right now. You know, I think we've been begging for them to be vocal and kind of assert themselves with our team. And so even my wife was like, "Hey, you and Grace, all right? Like, what happened during that timeout right there?" I was like, "This is great, man. This is good for us." And I think that's really shown the growth for our team this year. don't know if it was enjoyable during the moment, but it was good.
No, yeah, I would say Drake was definitely like probably my favorite memory of the season so far, because like he said, Drake doesn't lose at home very often. And we were kind of down a little in the first quarter, but I think we showed our resilience and we showed our ability to, come back and push through like tough foul calls and just like that kind of stuff. So it was very exciting to beat them on their home court and know that we have the ability to, fight through adversity and win basketball games.
Coming up next, we'll talk about Maggie's journey to Richmond, the jump she made between her freshman and sophomore year, and how Maggie and Aaron got involved in basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire every week, we're going to provide you players that are a guaranteed fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. My favorite pick from this week is the Utah Jazz's Keontae George. He had a season-high 30 points on Monday night against Oklahoma City. He also had 3 rebounds and 7 assists. And he isn't going to let go of the Jazz's starting point guard spot. His field goal percentage has been up and down this season, but he has shot 40% from the floor 3 times in his last 5 games, and I really like his opportunity right now. He's also averaged 17 points per game over his last 5 games. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. I am not a car person. I forgot the last time I replaced my tires, and honestly just last week thought they needed to be replaced when they were only 2 years old. As it turned out, my brakes did need to be replaced though, but that's where eBay Motors comes in to save me and make handling all of my car repairs easy. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day, local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Taking a step back, Maggie, how did you get your start playing basketball?
I've been playing for as long as I can remember. My mom was a college coach, so I definitely got my basketball love from her. But I've always had a ball in my hand, so yeah, really for a long time.
I did just read that really great Richmond.com article about you and your mom, Maggie. How has she impacted your basketball career?
I mean, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be playing. So she's helped me tremendously. I mean, from a young age, I loved basketball, but I wasn't always the best. I was kind of awkward, lengthy, tall kid who didn't really know how to control her limbs and was just moving all over the place. But yeah, I think I started taking it seriously like high school-ish. When the pandemic hit, I definitely took it upon myself to get in shape, kind of figure out what I really wanted to do. And yeah, I was in the driveway playing one-on-one with my dad, and my mom was she was there. She was watching those one-on-one games. Like, she didn't have to, but she was. And then when I got to high school and she was coaching me, we're just so similar that we either are both like jumping at the same idea or we're either arguing that, no, I'm right or she's right. But she's just been my rock. And yeah, I definitely wouldn't be here without her.
And what's your favorite part of playing the game?
I'm a very competitive person, so I love winning. So I would probably say that's my favorite part, is winning.
And how did you end up in Richmond? What stood out to you during the recruiting process that made you pick to be a Spider?
I think once I figured out that I wanted to get away from home and kind of branch off from Philly, Richmond was definitely one of my top options. Coach was great. He didn't really pressure me into making a decision fast. He let me take my time and really focus on what I wanted. I wanted a good academic school. I wanted to, be far from home, but if I wanted to come home for a weekend, it wasn't too far that I could just drive up 95 and be in Philly. But yeah, the team was great. The system was great. School was great. So it was really a no-brainer for me.
And then pivoting off Maggie for a second, Aaron, how did you get your start in coaching?
Well, first off, I appreciate that she said that we were giving her patience. She didn't have to take all of that patience. That was maybe I thought she was ready sooner. We didn't pressure that, but man, that was some tough sledding there for a while. But no, she was great and obviously very, very thankful. For me, honestly, got into coaching. People talk about a path to get into this, and I could never tell somebody to follow this path because I just don't see how it would even be realistic for anybody. I always loved coaching. I loved basketball. Probably loved the coaching side of it more than I even did the playing side of it, the strategy of it all. Kind of coached AAU boys even during high school, and then coming home in summers in college. And if you were to ever tell me this would, what was your perfect career path, I would have always said this, but never thought I could make this a career. So kind of thought it was either journalism, law school. Kind of at one point thought maybe I'd kind of be in your world, but then it kind of turned to law school and really thought I was taking a year off before going to law school, coached high school boys, and just kind of kept going down that road. I kept getting opportunities with a grad assistantship. My first job as an assistant at 24, 2 weeks after I got the job in Chicago, the head coach left, and it was October, and so they didn't have time to do another search, and was the interim coach, Division III at the age of 24. Probably didn't even want the job at that point. Was scared about messing everything up, but everything worked out, and had a really great team that year that was thirsty for some new blood, I guess, so to speak, and things just really worked out. And from there, again, opportunities just kind of keep coming your way.
And Maggie, this one's for you, and Aaron, feel free to chime in as well. Maggie, you're coming off an all-conference third team and all-rookie team season last year. You're now leading the team in scoring and rebounding so far. What work did you put in over the summer, and how do you think you've continued to develop during the off season?
I love being in the gym, whether it's just shooting or, lifting, or I guess I like conditioners too sometimes. But I just love being in the gym. So I've definitely taken it upon myself after last season to really focus on, getting better, because I know my team's going to need me this year. So I tried to, get more consistent with my shot, maybe perfect my mid-game range a little bit. Definitely work on ball handling and just little things like that I know will, translate to the games. So yeah, me and my team, it is not just me, my whole team put in a lot of work this summer, which is why we're where we are right now.
Talking about your work?
I don't know.
No, I just to echo that, man. I feel very, very fortunate to have the group that we have right now. I think I've been able to coach a lot of really special teams, and been fortunate enough to always have great kids. But this group, and this has been brewing here for the last couple of years, just the amount of work that they're putting in the gym with us on their own. Every once in a while, your coaches always say it's not our job. The perfect team, it's not your job to motivate them. Every coach needs to have those moments, but this is not a group that I worry about not working hard enough, not putting in the time. I pride myself in trying to be one of the last ones, if not the last one, leaving the gym. And some of these guys rival me at some point. Sometimes you just got to go. But these guys have really, really put in a lot of work, and Maggie especially. And Maggie, a lot of our players. When your best players are also your hardest workers, I think that's when championship teams happen, and that's when good things happen. And she's been a great model for our older kids, for our younger teams, just to put the work in. And you see that. I've seen that fire both in games and in the gym. she's just been tremendous, and blessed to coach her and excited to kind of see what her future entails here as well.
Coming up next, we'll continue talking about Maggie's growth, talk about what the pair are looking forward to in A10 play, and more. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. I love to give experiences as holiday gifts, and Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I also love Game Time because it's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up until the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And I know you had an injury early on last season, but where do you think you've grown the most since your freshman year?
Probably during that injury. I started off not really understanding the offense a little bit. It took me a minute, but I was starting to figure it out. And then I broke my hand. And during that time, I was kind of like, I took it upon myself to, figure out the offense more and try and learn from a different point of view on the sidelines. So I definitely grew, and I kind of grew in confidence too, because I knew that I could make an impact once I got back, and I felt, in better shape. I conditioned and I lifted, and I felt more confident in myself when I came back, and I think it showed.
Yeah, I don't say this very often, and I would have never said this to her a year and a half ago, but what you're seeing from Maggie right now is what I kind of knew was going to happen and what we expected to happen. I didn't always know when it would happen or all of that, but we knew Maggie was going to be a special player, and that even goes back to freshman year of, I hate to say bringing her along slowly, but I think we kind of had a strategy to make sure that she wasn't, with all due respect to her, because I don't even know that this would have happened, but I think a lot of times with freshmen with high expectations and starting early and doing all these things early in the season, it gets to be a long grind. And as much as I was nervous about losing some development and her, kind of losing out on that 4 to 6 weeks last year, in some ways maybe made her fresher a little bit. But to Maggie's credit, I think she learned a lot sitting out last year. And I don't know, there's a part of me that says, God, man, I wonder what could have happened last year if she didn't get hurt. And maybe that's unfair to her, but she really maximized the time of sitting out last year. And there was no surprise to me, kind of, the accolades that she got, the impact that she made for our team. We saw that happening early, even if it wasn't showing up in some of the minutes and rotations. There was a strategy there. And to her credit, we always knew she would be a difference maker at this level. And you're seeing that right now. And she's been, to the point that we've got people in stands right now that just don't believe she's a sophomore, and we talk about how old our team is right now. I just automatically lump Maggie into that. I put her in we have a lot of seniors, a lot of experience right now. I don't say those seniors and our sophomores. I think our sophomores and led by Maggie have put themselves into that group. And that's basketball IQ, that's work ethic, that's understanding the offense, how they carry themselves. It's just been really, really great to have and look forward to the future with her as well.
And Maggie, what are you still working on improving, and what are your individual goals for the rest of the season?
This is probably my least favorite question that people ask me. I'm obviously still working on just being a vocal leader, I feel like, on the floor. Like he said, we do have 3 seniors starting, and they've been here a lot longer than I have, and they know more things than I do probably. So I feel like when I am kind of not really being vocal, I can lean on them. But if they're not here next year, I know I kind of have to step into that role. So I feel like I'm learning a lot from them and kind of taking what they do now and implementing that into my leadership strategy and my game. But yeah, as far as individual goals, I really don't have any. I just want to win a A10 championship.
And speaking of that, last March, the A10 tournament, Maggie, you said that Aaron puts a lot of confidence in you and probably more than you put in yourself. Is that still true? And what does that mean to have that support from your coach?
It's great. Yeah, he definitely still does put more confidence in me than I do in myself. I feel like now our bond has kind of grown more. I feel like I can go up to him now and ask him more questions or ask him why we're doing this, and he won't, get mad or do anything. Not that he would last year, but yeah, I mean, he knows what I can do, and I have a lot of trust in him to put our team in good positions. So yeah, I mean, he's great. He's great.
Doesn't always say that 100%, but that's good. That's good.
And for both of you, what's your favorite part of being involved in the sport of basketball?
This is the God's honest truth, and Maggie talked about how competitive she is, and how competitive I am as well. I think we're both weirdly, and maybe we haven't talked about this together, but I think we're both weirdly triggered by like really small things that annoy us, that motivate us, and so I think there's certain times where it's like, oh no, they're not going to do that, and then we're not losing this game because we just saw that, or bulletin board. There's just certain things with that, so I think there is a competitive side to you that you just really probably couldn't capture doing anything else. But this is the God's honest truth, man. Like I just think, having the relationship with the players, having the whole team over at our house last night for a holiday party, and thinking back to laughters and memories, and I know my own kids are going to have that memories. When you get a fish as a gift during your holiday party for one of your kids, that's a memory that'll stay in my family forever. And you don't get those if you're not a part of these things, and weddings, all of that sort of stuff. Like you're just get to be involved in these guys' lives. And I think we've been very fortunate to have kids, and a lot of them come from great families. And I know Maggie's in that boat too. Like I know if I wasn't in Maggie's life, Maggie was going to be great, but I'm looking forward to being a part of her life, and razzing her about the Eagles are up there right now. But I always keep warning her the higher the climb, the harder the fall, so the Eagles aren't going to be on top of the world forever. So the next 20, 30, 40 years, she's probably going to get some text message, when things don't go well for the Eagles too. That part's enjoyable for me. But I'd also be lying, man. We're all really competitive, and maybe even a little bit with those Philly schools too. I think that's just something that I know she has that, and it's going to be enjoyable here.
Yeah, I kind of would say the same thing. I mean, the best part about basketball for me is the competitiveness. But also I think it's really cool the bonds you make when you're playing the sport. I mean, I've grown up in a basketball city, pretty much. Philly is definitely very basketball oriented. So I've met a lot of cool people through the sport. And, I definitely have made connections that I will, probably use in the future. But yeah, I mean, it's cool now to see the people that you grew up with playing and just like playing against, and now they're off either playing Division I or Division III, and just seeing like the growth of these people that you've been playing with your whole life. So I think that's also a really cool part of it.
And with conference play coming up soon, what are you both looking forward to once A10 play rolls around?
Oh, man. Probably going back to that competitive side. I mean, just a lot of tests. I mean, I hate to say that, like, you're never scared. Scared's the wrong word, but I really, really like our team. And then you look across what the rest of the league is doing right now, and you got George Mason in St. Joe's right now, obviously really, really playing well. You look what Davidson is doing right now. And obviously Rhode Island. We all picked Rhode Island to be the best team in the league. They might still be the best team in the league, and they're playing a tough schedule, and maybe a little bit up and down. But there's just. And you look at all, and we know we're all playing these teams all on the road. You look at like the top 9 in the standings right now, and all 9 of them, I think, we're playing on the road. Even across town at VCU, they're killing it right now. So I think there's a lot of tests, and maybe sometimes that's, again, you don't want to say scary, but I think that gets you going, man. It's fun to have these games where you're playing really well and winning by big margins. Hopefully that happens more often down the road. But there's also the realistic side of it that, like, you have to really, really prepare. And you have to really, really play well during that game. And if you're not doing both of those things, I just don't see anybody, having a successful league or a successful team in the league this year. The league's just too deep, and dare I even say top heavy too. There's just some really, really good teams in that top tier, and there's also no nights off in our league.
Yeah, I think the best part about playing in the A10 is you kind of like grow to know everybody. You know what Davidson does well, you know what St. Joe's does well, and then you know what VCU does well, and you kind of have to not like adjust, but yeah, you do have to adjust to the teams that you play. And you know a lot about the teams too. I mean, I definitely know a lot of people in like St. Joe's and LaSalle, but then you know, you got some people on our team who are from Richmond, so they know a lot of people in VCU, and there's just like connections like that kind of make it more motivating to want to beat like A10 teams, and I think that's very exciting.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, and good luck with the rest of your schedule.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Natalie.
Thanks for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And make sure to tune in the rest of the week for more from Howard, and tune in on Saturday to hear from our WNBA draft crew.